Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Developing the Leader Within podcast. Today, I am here with a favorite of mine. I just got to say it, right? Charlynda Scales. She is the CEO, the founder of Mutt's Sauce. You see, we're sporting the shirt. I got a bottle right here, which is so delicious, and I implore everybody to go get some. So, Charlynda, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate not only your service and what you've done for our nation, but also for taking on a legacy, right, of your grandfather and making it something that we all get to enjoy now, which is a blessing to us. So thank you, Charlynda, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
When I met you back when Mick Orlando was going on, it was the very first time that the Military Influencer Conference was here in Orlando. I was fortunate to work on some angles of getting that, populated out here and distributed. But it was so nice to meet you there and all of the veteranpreneurs, right? Because that's what it is. It's veterans that are on the entrepreneurship route was gathering together and teaching other veterans and other folks on how to go down that journey smartly, with due diligence, and eventually get on the other side of the lucrative side of entrepreneurship. And I want to just entertain a couple of things with you, but mainly your service. I've served, you served, you are still serving. I'm sure you talk about that, but just want to talk about your service. Give us a little glimpse of how that was.
Sure. Well, first of all, Enrique, thank you for having me. Oh my gosh. This is I'm really glad you're in the family now. You've joined the Mutt Sauce family. And it is about service. I'm a fourth generation veteran. So my family has served in every branch except for the Coast Guard, but I tell them we're still recruiting. I mean, even if I got to throw my son in there, we'll have a Coastie. But service was a big deal in my family. My grandfather was a Korean Vietnam War veteran, and I didn't have military aspirations growing up. I respected the service of our family. My cousins, I had two older cousins. One went into the Marine Corps. So I thought for my generation, he had like checked the block for us. And he went out to Paris Island, graduated with honors, went to his first assignment, and he got hurt really bad in a cold weather training and got sent medically DQ'd. So at that point, I think, if you served one day, you served. That was my philosophy. My granddad comes from a different generation. And in his mind, he was like, no, you got to retire. He's like, who's next? So me and my other cousin were sitting there like, rock, paper, scissors.
Right.
But I just happened to be sitting in a class in high school, and this kid was filling out an ROTC scholarship, which I really didn't understand the difference between ROTC and just enlisting. I filled it out, and I passed my guidance counselor in the hallway, and she asked me what it was, and I told her it was like some scholarship. I don't know. I wanted to play sports, and I tore my ACL the very first game of the season. So I was out. Hopefully good grades was going to take me there. And all the community service that I did. But apparently that's really good for Air Force scholarship. And they called me one day, asked me to do an interview. I still didn't realize it was a scholarship interview. I just shrugged it off, and we got the invite at the end of the year to talk about going into the service or awards won. And I found out that I got a full ride to any college I wanted to go to. And I just owed 4 years. So I was like, what?
Sign me up.
Sign me up. And my granddad, hearing that, it was I didn't realize the impact that it had on him when I told him that, yeah, I have to go in. I'll be a second lieutenant. And his eyes were really big. He's like, a what? And I was like, I don't know. Second lieutenant, is that good? And he's like, that's what? He just lost it because, back then, to achieve a rank even like that was simply almost unattainable for, you know, Black men. So I went through the whole program, commissioned, and he was the first person to salute me. So I'm
Outstanding.
just really glad that I have that memory with him. He had passed away from cancer, so he was really, really sick at my graduation, and I was glad that he was alive to even witness it. But for him to be a part of it, you know, I'll always be grateful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And for a family that has that type of heritage, military service, I know that he was just plumb tickled about how, you know, when his eyes told it all, right?
Yeah.
That you would attain such a height in your life, him knowing and seeing how hard it was throughout his life. And so, yeah, that's beautiful. And so you're talking about grandpa, granddaddy. Um, you know, I have his picture right here, and
Yes, and
I think this is just one of the greatest things you could have done as a granddaughter. One of the greatest things anyone could do to highlight their family member that they love and cherish, and take something that he created, and you know, you make it work for your entire family now. And it's amazing
yeah.
how people don't think about that type of stuff. Hey, for those out there that got grandma's cookbook, y'all better start y'all better start churning it up. but
I
uh,
All it
uh
is whatever value you perceive it to have, it becomes what you perceive it to be. There's power in that. Really
it's
is.
a yeah, and I love that the honor that you are paying him. And so let's talk about him for a little bit. I'm sure you have some fond memories. It's not only the recipe, right? It's what he meant to you, and that's what I take every time I see the bottle. Every time I look at the shirt, I remember him, and I didn't even meet him, right? So that's pretty cool. So let's talk about you know, grandpa here for a little bit.
Yeah, so his name is Charlie Farrell Jr. He's a country boy from the hills of Tennessee. And growing up, I lived with him and my grandmother. It was like 10 of us in a little country house in Tennessee. So it's different living with your grandparents, living in a multi-generational home because you're
Right.
influenced by all of them. But him being a retired veteran, my afternoons and mornings were spent listening to him and his experiences in the war. So, you know, I don't know if you've ever met those rural veterans. They all have war stories, but that was like a daily thing. Like,
Right, right.
Tutti Frutti, let me tell you about this time. Let me tell you about when I climbed on this plane. And when you're like 5 and 6 and you're hearing all this stuff, it doesn't really resonate that this is kind of therapy. You know,
Hmm.
they didn't have all these programs for Vietnam vets for therapy and PTSD and trauma that they experienced in
Right.
war. So him talking it out, you know, I perceive it now as like this was his therapy. Just walking with a 5-year-old in the countryside, just downloading life. And I just respected him so much. You could tell that he he had a career where he worked really hard and he was solely focused on how do I do the best job I can to take care of my whole lineage, not just my kids, but my kids' kids. I'll do that too. And he had 5 children of his own. Him and my grandmother, Joyce Jean, had their 5 kids, and he's served over 20 something years, I think 26 years. And he was an aircraft mechanic, so he worked on aircraft. And he was also passionate about sauce. So that's how we got to where we're at now. Back in 1956, he had made that recipe. He was not a fan of condiments. He thought people were
Mm.
wasteful. He's like, you waste, you got a fridge full of condiments and you don't even use half of them. Half of them are expired. They're just there. But he wanted to make something he thought was super practical that he knew he would use all the time, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So it was just a main staple in the house. It was in a mason jar. It didn't have a name, but his call sign from Korean Vietnam was Mutt. So when I was trying to hash out this idea of finally I'm going to bottle it, I was asking family members what I should call it. And my uncle, he's like, well, they called it Mutt. Maybe you just call it, Mutt sauce. I was like, Mutt sauce. There you go. So the sauce for everything, with a man who got his call sign because he adapted so easily. That was his personality. So I decided to name it after him. And it keeps me humble because I didn't come up with this recipe. This was his passion project. And I respect any entrepreneur, because when you have an idea or an invention and you have toiled probably hundreds of times to get it right, the credit goes to you. That's why my face and my name is not on that bottle, because I didn't do that work. I wasn't in the kitchen trying over and over and over to get this right. That was all his work.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And just another, a testament to the person that you are, and you're honoring him. So that's I was fortunate, had my great grandfather alive when I was growing up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I remember sitting down. He was blind just because of diabetes. He went blind, but the man could talk. And if you had an ear, he chew it off. But I love sitting at his side and just listening to when they used to trade cattle and sheep, and because that's what the money was. And so it was nice. So I'm happy that you were able to have that yourself. So you started this thing, and now you're in entrepreneurship. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that.
So I was on active duty. I was doing my thing. I was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. I'm still here in Ohio, but it was my next to my last duty assignment, and I was eating some food, and all of a sudden I was just thinking, man, my grandfather has already passed. He'd been gone for 8 years, but it just dawned on me that I've been eating all this food and it's boring and flavorless because it's missing sauce. Like, I ate it all the time. So I called my mom and I asked her, why did he not leave this to anybody? I just assumed that he had left it to one of his sons, or, maybe my mom, and, and they just didn't talk about it. When you're grieving, you're not talking about who gets what. So I said, who got the recipe, by the way? And she said, well, whenever you come home again, we're going to have a chat. I said, okay. So when I came home, she handed me an envelope, and she said, before your granddad passed away, he asked me to hand you something. And so I opened it, and it was his handwriting. I could tell it was his handwriting. It was the recipe, and she said he only wrote it down one time, and he asked me to give it to you. Wow. So I'm just sitting there like, what am I supposed to do with this? She said, she didn't give you instructions. You tell me, whatever you want to do with it. Shelve it, put it in a safe. I don't know. It's yours. Wow. And I asked her why it took her 8 years, and she said it was just, she realized when she opened it that, this is the most significant thing, not money or any of his old cars or any of that. That wasn't the valuable stuff. She said this was valuable, and she just didn't know how to have the conversation with her brothers and sisters, so she didn't say anything. She's like, she just didn't say anything and waited for the first person to ask about it. And she's like, how funny is it? The first person to ask about it is you.
Meant to be. Amazing. So you get this recipe. You're talking about it. I'm thinking that's an envelope full of gold. That's what that was, right? Not only what was near and dear to his heart, or something that he put his passion in, to see the smiles on the faces of the family members, but now he picked a successor. That's what it is. And
when you think about it, I'm going to spend probably the rest of my life trying to figure out. And then I think that everything I've done up until this point is me trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm just going to keep doing until there's nothing left to do. I went to Google and I Googled mentorship, free mentorship, because I didn't know what direction to take, and I went to SCORE, so the organization SCORE. You can go on score.org and find a chapter in your city, and I set up a session. And the man that I met, his name was John Suter, and he said that you're not thinking big enough, because I wanted to just make a couple for friends and family, and I wanted to learn how to can. I was like, how do I can this and maybe like make 100 and give them to friends and family? He's like, what is your goal? I said, I want to take care of my family. He said, then you need to think bigger than that. Mm-hmm. This can be a whole company. I'm like, what? So how? So he gave me a checklist, and he's like, military people love checklists, so I'm going to give you a checklist, and we'll move at the speed of determination, is what he told me. And
look at that.
I was like, well, how fast is that? He's like, are you determined to do this? And however determined you are is how fast it's going to happen. So he also found me a peer mentor, so someone in the food industry who was local, and he thought, was successful enough to give me some guidance. And there was a local salsa company. Her name was Peggy, and she was in a lot of grocery stores. And she said, I'm going to show you how to take this piece of paper, make a product, and get it in a store. Even if it's a mom and pop, she's like, we're going to get you on the shelf, just so you can get the confidence to know that you can do it.
Right.
And that was 4 months from the time I met John and Peggy to our first production. And that was in 2013. Our first production was co-packaged, contract packaging. That's where you pay someone to make it. They quote you a per bottle price, and you just pay that out. And they send you a pallet or however many boxes that you've ordered. And it was hand poured by the Amish. So the Amish hand poured our first 700 bottles. It wasn't the image that I thought. I was thinking like the fully automated machines, like 100 a minute. I was thinking about that. And I walked in, and there was like all these bottles and this big picture and this girl who looked like she was 12 and a kettle. I was like, what is going on? Peggy I just trusted her, and I booked it. So when I walked in, I'm like, what is this? But, the quality, it was perfect. And to know that Mutt sauce has a very unique, sweet and tangy taste and smell, like to walk in and you can smell the sauce, like the very distinctive aroma, cooking in this giant kettle. I was like, this is beyond my wildest dream to be able to make this happen. So I invited my uncle, and that's how the family is involved. All of his children I call quality control. So I actually made them a contract where if I do a new production, one of them is there to taste it, because they've been eating it longer than me. So they sign off on the flavor. And then if they're independent, they're also independent contractors. So if they need summer jobs, any of the kids need summer jobs, they can work as a sales rep. So the family's still involved, but my uncle showed up, and he's a chef, and he taste tested the first batch. So I have
outstanding.
It's a family ordeal. It's definitely a family business.
That is so nice. You talk about the entrepreneurship plunge, and it really is. You just don't know where to start, and you could have a gold mine in a bottle, and you just don't know. And so I really appreciate entities like SCORE, the local business entrepreneurship programs that they may have, and through the Chamber of Commerce or what have you. But thank goodness you ran into the right people at the right time. And sometimes you pray for things to fall in your lap, and they come by pieces, right? It's not just one thing; it comes by pieces. Mm-hmm. So I'm so happy that you were able to score. No pun intended on that one, but score the actual happenings all coming together to support your dream. So you start down this route, and then you run into Bob Evans Farms.
Yeah. That was.
I saw that. That's funny because I had wrote you So we're connected on LinkedIn as well. So I wrote you, I sent you a picture. I said, look who I found in the grocery store in the back of
That
a
was
Bob Evans.
wild. I'm
I
like,
said, what in the world? And I would just say, man, I just saw her, and make not too long ago. Oh my goodness. So
yeah.
that was such a pleasant surprise. Talk to me about that Bob Evans Farms, relationship, and then a little bit about Daymond John, because that's a biggie. That's a biggie.
It's big. I fell out. I'll get that. Yeah, I fell out. I about caught the Holy Ghost, just fell out. So, I tell people there's power in persistence and just not giving up, because if I had given up early in my entrepreneur career, because it's so hard, there's a lot going on. I was on active duty, so that was my number one priority. And to run a startup that basically has taken off in this direction you never thought it would be, developing so fast and growing so fast and trying to manage it, I had days where I was just like, maybe not. I want to take care of my family, but this is so stressful. We had gone to Shark Tank at the 6-month point. So we made it all the way to Hollywood and taped an episode that never aired. But to have the experience of going there, I think really helped me. I got rejected. So when people were like, oh, you went to Shark Tank. And the most important part, I got rejected. I got all that way, went from May to September preparing to be on Shark Tank, got there, and within 10 minutes of pitching, they're like, we're so glad you came here. Your story is so nice. No deal. And they were sweet about it. They were all really nice. They're like, we believe in you. We just, you're 6 months old. There's nothing you can really prove to us with only 6 months in business. That's what it came down to. Right. And I don't think I was very convincing, because I was still active duty, and the military told me, do not go on national TV and quit your job. You will not quit the Air Force on national TV. So I'm in a dilemma, because I can't tell them what they want to hear, which is, I'm going to leave everything and just do Mutt sauce. Well, take that rejection in 2014. I keep just hammering at this thing, doing what I can. And then 2017, I went to Mick, but it was Dallas. And they have like this Facebook group after you've been, that you can exchange ideas with other attendees. And they said, today's the last day to sign up for this Bob Evans contest. They're giving a grant to, veterans. I was like, what? Okay, well, let me just get in here real quick and apply real quick. It was the last day. And I applied. A couple weeks went by. I got a phone call that said I was being considered as a finalist. And then they said, keep your phone on and you might hear something in another week. And I was walking in a federal building and my phone rang, and I almost didn't answer it because I was like, I don't know who this is, but they told me someone might call. And I picked up the phone and said, hey, this is Daymond John. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm being punked. I'm being punked.
Where's the camera?
And he said, you've won. He said, you've won. And he said, you get a meeting with me. And I'm sitting there like, I got rejected at Shark Tank. And now I have won a meeting with the shark. No equity of my company being given up. Nothing. And he said, and you want a check for $25,000. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I said, how much? Oh, so it was like, what's the interest on it? What I got to pay back? And he was like, no, it's just for you. It's just a grant. I'm like, wow. So that's how I initially met him, was through the Bob Evans contest, because they wanted to expand on their dedication to veterans. Bob Evans himself was an Army veteran, and they have a legacy of service tied into their mission for the company. So they wanted to just find a way to give back to veteran entrepreneurs. There were 3 of us, and we all went up to New York, and we got to sit one-on-one with Daymond John to talk about how we're operating right now, what we're going to do with the $25,000, and what he thinks we should apply the $25,000 towards. And it was significant to me because when I went to Shark Tank in 2014, they tell you when you're prepping to prep your pitch for a specific shark, have one in mind. And mine was Daymond, because I lived with my granddad and my grandmom, but my mom wanted to be all independent. So she moved out of the house and we moved into the projects. I didn't know I was a project kid till I got to school, and they're like, you're poor and teasing you and stuff. And I said, I don't feel poor and disadvantaged. My house is full of love. But growing up with humble beginnings and seeing his life, being raised by a single mom and, coming from the same sort of background, and to hear his story, I would sell Mutt sauce out the back of my Honda. He would sell t-shirts, FUBU t-shirts at the back of his truck. So everything mirrored his upbringing and his path as an entrepreneur. And I wanted to learn from him. And his advice was, embrace the power of broke. He just had a book that came out. He said, embrace the power of broke. Don't act like you have money, because when you come from humble beginnings and you get what you think is a lot of money, you get wasteful. And you think that, you got to buy a $5,000 website, and you got to, I'm going to pay this consultant $1,500 because I can. He said, you need to act like you are still broke, and what you would do and how you hustle and how you make decisions when you don't have a lot. And he said, if it has a return on investment, that's what you focus on. You can't make money if you're not making Mutt sauce. So you need to be manufacturing sauce. He said, and if you still got to take your Honda and do what you got to do that. But you can do contracts and things like that. You can sell your sauce in bigger quantities.
Right.
So I took that advice. And people wonder, well, how am I still in touch with him today? Because one thing that I learned from coming from that side of the tracks is you got to find the opportunity. There's an opportunity in every situation. I learned that he was coming out with another book called Rise and Grind, and he was looking for VIP brand ambassadors. I was like, for someone who did so much for me, I will promote all your stuff all day long. You just hand me the microphone. So I went to his manager right after the meeting. I just walked up to him. I said, are there any more slots for the VIP brand ambassadors? I think it would be a good idea to use one of the Bob Evans winners. And he's like, that's a good idea. I'm like,
I love it.
So that's how we continued working together. And through that, you get additional mentorship. You get to see how he operates. And, recently I learned that he put me in his latest book, Power Shift. So the book Power Shift is about how to overcome any adversity, how to change your situation. In the time of COVID and the pandemic, entrepreneurs are looking at, what do I do? I have to change my business model if I'm going to survive. I have to change up the way I'm selling stuff if we're going to survive and make it. What if things never go back to the way they were? People's shopping habits are now, probably permanently altered because they know I don't have to go out. Look, there's Thrive Market, there's Kroger.com now, there's Amazon delivery for food. Like, I don't have to go to the store if I don't want to. They have gotten this feel of the convenience of online. So I've had to adapt, and I've learned from him how to do that.
Yeah, and hey, that's how I got my bottle. Right, I went online, and I didn't have to go to Tennessee, although I would go to Tennessee.
There's only one store in Tennessee too. Yeah, my granddad, he had this little country store that he loved growing up, and so I went to. They don't even have. Let me tell you something. They don't even have an email address. That's how they've kept everything like circa 1950 something.
All right.
But I will have my cousin come and take a batch and drive to Tennessee and just have it on the shelf for people who knew him.
That's nice. That is wonderful. Yeah, that experience with Bob Evans Farms and Daymond John, I know has been invaluable. But you're right. And for those entrepreneurs out there or entrepreneurs at heart, persistence is the key. Don't give up. Don't let up. and just keep going, keep grinding. So I saw that you was in the next book. I was so happy for you. And I know that that's going to lead into other doors opening up. So let's talk a little bit about the future, right? The future. What do you have in store? What are you thinking of? What's being presented?
Well, COVID caused me to relook at my business model. And the one thing was I had a big retail footprint. We had just gotten into Kroger in Ohio. So we were in like 86 stores, and we were in a couple regional stores. So the way my business model was just in 2019 was probably 90% retail, 10% e-commerce. And most of my revenue was made doing events and trade shows, food demos, and festivals between May and September. And I normally would shut all my operations down around like March, April timeframe just to get organized and ready for the summer. I'm lining up, who's going to be working these events and stuff. So last year, I have this personal journey I've been on just as a woman. Like I wanted to have kids, and it was hard because I felt like the military, I had to put my whole life on hold. Like if you're going to be a high speed officer, there's programs and timing of those programs and assignments and deployments and all this stuff. And, you don't want to be left behind. So you take them and you do the sleepless nights and stuff. But what ends up happening is you don't get a life. You don't get a life. And I was nearing 40 with nothing to show for it but a divorce. So I said, I'm gonna make this leap. So I say that because in March my son was due, and when I finally had him, he had it was like a rare form of jaundice. So I was in the hospital for an extra 2 weeks. Wow. But even with that, I'm thinking I'm going to take 6 weeks. We have the stores shut down. Everything's shut down until May. So I still have some time to spend with him before everything gets cranked up. But imagine you're there in the hospital and you keep getting these emails of everything being canceled. Every festival, every event that you have planned and paid for are all gone. And you've lost your registration money because there's no refunds. So I'm like, everything is canceled. What is going on? I had no idea. I was like, why is everything canceled? So as we're getting ready to leave the hospital, they're like, so there's this thing called coronavirus. And I'm like, coronavirus? And you pamphlets and go online, because I'm like, nothing is going to distract me from being in the moment with my son right now. He's sick. I got to get him well. So I didn't know how bad it was. They're like, they've declared it a pandemic. When you take him home, do not take him outside at all. When you go outside, limit it to like once a week, maybe, because it is serious and we don't know anything about it. So I'm like, I'm going home with a sick baby and a zombie apocalypse. And all of my money for the summer is gone. So I know a lot of my mentors, including Daymond, have been talking about online and the power of e-commerce. So I was like, I'm hard-headed, and sometimes with entrepreneurs, there's jumping off the cliff, but some people need to be kicked off the cliff, and I'm getting kicked off the cliff, and to make this dive into online sales. And I'm home with my newborn at my laptop, learning how to put refresh my website, set up online marketing. I'm learning it. I was teaching myself at night in between feeding him. And that's been my reality since March. And I think now we're in a rhythm. Our sales, I was really shocked, even in June. I had more sales in June than I did last year between May and September. So the whole summer sales in 1 month.
Yeah, good deal. I love it. I
was like, wow, it's the power of not being hard-headed too. Listen, when people listen. You might have a point. So
I wonder why they warn us, right? That's it's wonderful to see that you have actually, and it's funny because the pivot word has taken a new meaning. Before it was just something you did to adjust. No, this is everybody. At the same time, everybody has to do something
yeah,
to change the way they do business in order to capitalize, even in the situation that we are in. And so I sure am glad that you went uh, commerce, or else I would have been waiting. But no, it's great that you have gone down that route, because you're going to see it, and you have already seen the difference of actually making some positive steps to make sure that you adjust for the situation. And nobody knows how far down the road we'll be with this, but at least now you're still, you're still delivering and producing and getting the sauce into people's hands, which is a great thing. So, Charlynda, it has been an honor, not only to know you, have met you in person, and now speaking here on the podcast, but thank you for your continued service. I know that you have signed on the dotted line again, and that takes a lot of commitment. I applaud you for that, especially in the in the situation you're in now. You have your
have
baby, you
this
have this
baby.
company.
Yeah, I got that
It
first bill. I'm like, wait a minute.
yeah.
Try care, honey.
Yeah.
Try care.
So I believe you. I mean, thankfully all my stuff with my retirement, as your grandpa would say, retire. I did, and it's been a blessing to me, and so I applaud you on your continued service. I applaud you on the things that you have done to keep the Mutt's Sauce family in the family, and I know that they are appreciative of that. And I just wish you all the best, um, and I will continue to keep track of where you're going and how far you go. But if you need anything on this end in Orlando, just let us know, and we'll be sure to oblige.
Hello. I was like, where did you go?
It froze. You was frozen. I was like, oh well. I was going, but that's cool because what I could pick up from where it was. You stay right there,
Okay.
frozen.
I was like, you said I applaud you on your service. I was like, thank you. And it's like,
That's funny, but you'll hear the rest of it on the replay.
okay.
Um,
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this chat. And thank you for letting me tell my story, because that's the other thing I did learn was there's power in telling your story,
mhm.
and people need to hear that. They need to hear you testify, because that might be what they need to give them the bravery to
Yeah,
jump off the cliff into entrepreneurship. So, or to, get past any adversity that they may be experiencing in their life, that they think, I can't be an entrepreneur because I'm going through a divorce. I can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, or I'm a mom. And those are your assets. Those are things that are being put into your toolkit of success. They're
right.
not those things that you need to have as barriers to success. So, thank you for allowing people to have a platform to do that.
Well, you are very welcome. It is my honor, and I wish you all the best. And all those that are listening to Charlynda's story, I urge you to get online. It's available now. Get some mud sauce. It is still summer. It's summer all the time in Florida, so they got no excuse. Uh, and for everybody listening, as I normally end the show, success to you.